It's not just
somebody
you.
that Jeffrey
I mean,
Epstein seems to
gods,
value. Now, his
monsters,
emails about Donald Trump
robots?
fall in one of two
Oh,
categories.
this is pretty
On the one hand,
crazy.
he wants to know
We're
everything
just
about
two
President
kids
Trump. He
from
wants
New
to know where
York
he's
without
traveling to.
sex
He wants to know what's
inside.
going on with him politically.
Or
He's
saving
constantly
the
being sent
universe,
emails and
Look,
articles
if
about
somebody's gotta
that have
do
been
it,
written
might
about
as well
Trump,
be us.
and he's sending other people
Andy
articles
needs
that have
help.
been written about Trump. So there's just a lot of
So is
interest
the timeline
about what's going on in Trump's life. On the other hand, when he talks about him personally, he describes somebody he doesn't like. He basically says that Trump is borderline insane. He describes him as someone who doesn't have a decent cell in his body. He basically doesn't see him as someone that he values. I think that Jeffrey Epstein sees himself as smarter than Donald Trump. That seems to be the way that he describes him. He makes fun of Trump being a genius in one email. So what I gather is that Jeffrey Epstein did not like Donald Trump. Now, at one point they were friends. I think they've both acknowledged that at one point in their lives they were friends. But during this period, it seems like there's nothing but disdain. Not only did Jeffrey Epstein dislike Donald Trump, he actually tried to cause harm. He tried to help during a congressional hearing when they were interviewing Michael Cohen. He was texting with, you may have already heard about this, he was texting with a congresswoman trying to help her and trying to prompt her on the questions to ask. So Jeffrey Epstein very actively was trying to harm Donald Trump during this time. Now, the way he talks about former President Bill Clinton is totally different. I think that there was a real kinship there, and I think they remained friends for a long time. There's evidence to suggest that we're going to get into when we get into the actual emails. Now, despite that fondness, in 2016, it seems like that there was something that Bill Clinton said that made Jeffrey Epstein feel like he couldn't trust him. And it is characterized that Bill Clinton is very manipulative. That's how he sees him. He's someone he likes. He's someone he wants to spend time with, but he also describes him as extremely manipulative. And in terms of what I learned about Jeffrey Epstein himself, in terms of what he's like, in terms of how he communicates, he is someone that absolutely loves to have leverage and power over people. This goes exactly with what we already know about him, which is he's someone that wants to be in control. That shows in his emails. What's interesting about the way that he emails is that he uses sentence fragments. He doesn't actually form whole thoughts almost ever. Occasionally he will actually use proper grammar, but it's full of spelling errors, half thoughts. He's usually telling people what to do, trying to organize what somebody can say as a response to different situations, like the Virginia Giuffre situation. He's trying to tell people what to say in those situations. And before we get into the actual emails, there is one thing I want to cover about how he communicates. He is fully aware that people might read these emails. He had already been convicted back in 2008. He's very careful about what he says. And some things are said intentionally that he knows are not true, possibly knowing that at some point people are going to review these things. He is fully aware. And I know he's aware because he says, this is for phone only, or call me about this. Don't put this in an email. He makes specific references to that. So he sees email as an unsafe, unsecure communication, whereas phone, I guess he assumed his phone calls were not being listened to at that point. I presume they weren't because I haven't heard anything about that. But he seemed to think talking by phone was a safe way to communicate. Sitting through email was absolutely not. So keep that in mind as you read this. Don't take what he says literally too often. Do not take everything he says at face value, because he's only putting information out there that he thinks other people could read and that wouldn't get him into trouble. Now that we've talked about Trump, Clinton, and Epstein, let's talk about the actual content of the emails. Let's look at the most consequential emails, and we'll talk about what those mean. Now, the first email we're going to look at is about former President Bill Clinton. A couple of things I want you to keep in mind as we go through all of these. The formatting can be a little bit weird. It was originally sent over and released in just a wall of text. It looked terrible. It was impossible to read. I've got it reorganized, and so some of them are going to look like this. Some will look like raw emails. But just understand, these were formatted so they would be easier to look at. So this email exchange is between Jeffrey Epstein and Kathy Rumler. If you're not familiar with her, I believe she was the White House counsel during Barack Obama's presidency. The first email from Jeffrey Epstein says, "Talking to MacGyver disturbs me," and that takes a lot. It's at the bottom, by the way, if you're keeping track of this. Now, what he's saying is he's talking to Bill Clinton. That's MacGyver. MacGyver was someone that could get out of any situation. It's very clear in a second that that's who they're talking about. But I assume they refer to him as MacGyver because he's able to come up with things on the fly, which also suggests that he's manipulative. And we're going to get much more into that as this continues to go on. But he's saying, talking to Bill Clinton right now, what he's saying is disturbing, and that takes a lot. That is probably one of the most significant things to have come out in all of these emails. That really blows my mind. But let's keep going, and we're going to talk more about it. Kathy Rumley replies, "What part do you find disturbing? Do you think he's losing it?" So I suppose just because he's getting older, maybe they're implying that it's some sort of age-related issue. Jeffrey Epstein says, "You were right and I was wrong. Humble pie, crow, or my own words is what I get to eat today. Your choice." Kathy Rumley replies, "Meaning I win the bet that I will never receive an apology or acknowledgement of the acceptance of responsibility."
You'll need a
Jeffrey
top-notch
Epstein
team
says,
to
I
win
could
this
never
one."
ever verify its authenticity, so
Show
yes.
some respect.
Kathy Rumler replies, I will just say I told you so. Not to sound overly dramatic, but he's very close to being a psychopath. He has no conscience. It's scary. Now, that is a profound statement to be making about somebody that they both apparently know. Now, Jeffrey Epstein replies, I was wrong. Kathy Rumler replies, he obviously said something to you yesterday that was disturbing and you don't want to tell me. Just tell me. I can take it. I promise. Jeffrey Epstein replies, my memory is a friend
I
killer.
shall go down
I
fighting.
stopped talking to Clinton when he swore, with wholehearted conviction to me, that he had done something. He had forgotten that he also swore the exact opposite to me only weeks before. So he's painting Bill Clinton as a liar and a manipulator. Kathy Rumler replies, MacGyver takes it to another level because if you call him out on it, he will explain with a straight face that both statements are true. Now, we actually saw him do this when he was president. Bill Clinton, I mean, when he was president. But what this says to us is that these are two people that are talking about Bill Clinton being an extremely manipulative, disturbing individual. I'm very curious what Jeffrey Epstein's referring to when he was saying that they were talking about something that disturbed him. I also want you to keep in mind, this is 2016. This is many, many years after Bill Clinton allegedly had no contact with him. They just went on a trip to Africa together. They traveled a little bit together because it was convenient to ride in his plane. They don't really know each other. That's the line that was being said. So I want you to keep in mind, they were on the phone on January 22nd, 2016, talking about something that disturbed Jeffrey Epstein. So to me, that is true new information that we are gaining from these Epstein files. If we talk about the various bombshells in it, to me, this is a big one. Now, this email exchange is between Jeffrey Epstein and Landon Thomas Jr. Now, Jeffrey Epstein was really bothered by the accusations made by Virginia Giuffre. They caused a lot of problems for Prince Andrew, obviously, and they were causing a lot of problems for him personally. So understand, when he talks about this, he has every reason to say things that are not true. Let's read through these emails, then we'll talk about their significance. So Jeffrey Epstein says, and you got to keep in mind, these are backwards, so the older ones are going to be on the bottom. Email reads Landon. There's a redacted name, which is likely Virginia Giuffre, considering the context of all of this, but the storyteller crafted much of it out of whole cloth. Part of her story is that she was at multiple orgies with Clinton, and specifically the minute details of a dinner had on the island with him. He sat on my left, came by Black Heli, flown by Ghislaine. Clinton was never, ever there. Never. It punches a hole in the Dershowitz-Andrew allegation, making it all apparent that it was fantasy and delusional. Thoughts? Who should break the story? So you have to think about what the purpose of this email is. The purpose of this email is to say that Virginia Giuffre is lying and nothing she's saying is true. So by saying Clinton was never, ever there, never, that if they can prove those things, it would punch a hole in the Dershowitz and Andrew allegations. So making it apparent that it was all fantasy and delusional. So this is not him trying to express what the actual truth is. He is fully aware that people may at some point monitor these things, and he's trying to create what would be a story that would then all of a sudden make the Dershowitz and Andrew allegations go away. So Landon Thomas Jr. replies, let's have a chat. You do need to fight back somehow. Present evidence that she is lying and show the world that you are no longer that guy. You have made changes and that this is the past. There's some contradiction here. Now, I know this is not Jeffrey Epstein that wrote this, but it's kind of funny because he's basically saying, say that she's lying, but also show that you're not that guy and that you've made changes from being that person. So she can't both be lying and then have him be a different person than he was when he did these things. It just doesn't really make any sense. My sense is that it's TV type thing where you just talk honestly about this, present evidence that it's not true, and focus on what you've been doing for the past 5 years. Charlie Rose, you can't just sit there taking punches like this, especially when the British tabs are driving this. Maybe you can go on British TV. Call me anytime. So he is saying you need to fight back against this. Let's get you in front of cameras. Here's what the dialogue would be. Jeffrey Epstein is saying, this is what I could say. This would be the story. That doesn't make any of this true. So you can't be overly literal with someone who knows they potentially are being monitored, who when they have something really serious to say, they say it over the phone. He references that in other emails. All right, let's keep going. So here's an example of an interaction where he talks about not giving specific details by email. There are plenty of emails like this, but I just wanted to give this example. So Epstein messaged Landon Thomas Jr. And basically, after a long explanation of whether or not Al Gore had ever been to the island, and so on and so forth. At the end, they talk about this and say phone only, because that means there are details he does not want to give over email. There is sensitive information, and he is aware of that. So anything that he puts in these emails, he is fully aware may be read by other people. So always keep that in mind when it comes to reading through all of these emails. Now we're going to look at a text exchange between Jeffrey Epstein and someone whose name has been redacted. So we don't know who this is. Label it G. That is most definitely not the name of the person. Their name has been redacted. It's just because these were text messages. The data gets a little bit funny, so don't worry about the labels. Anyway, so on December 2nd, 2018, the two of them were having some conversation about some sort of injury that the other person had had. But then on December 3rd, this person reached out and said, "It will all blow over. They're just trying to take down Trump and doing whatever they can to do that!" Exclamation point. Jeffrey Epstein replied, "Yes, thanks. It's wild because I am the one able to take him down." So is he being grandiose, or does he actually have something that would be harmful to President Trump? That's what's unclear, because later on, we're going to get into an exchange with a congresswoman where he's actively trying to harm Trump. He's actually trying to get Trump taken down, basically. So it's unclear what this would possibly be, if this is just him being grandiose, because he is someone that sees himself as being in control. So when he says, "I am the one able to take him down," that could just be that he's grandiose, that he believes that he's knows things that are that important. And as we'll see later, he continues to try to assert some kind of control into President Trump's future. So here's an email exchange between Jeffrey Epstein and what seems to be a pilot, although they redacted the name, so we don't know for sure who it is. But based on the context, that's what it seems like. Right here, Jeffrey Epstein essentially is writing out what the pilot should say. This is basically his draft of how he believes the pilot should handle all of these questions. "I only met Jeffrey Epstein after I was adult, over 18. I was never ever his sex slave. Obviously a lurid chauvinistic categorization, which in my opinion could only have been made by some loser of a repressed male reporter. He was always kind, funny, generous to me. These fantasy fabrications made by a delusional thief. Charged with stealing from the burger place which she worked, though she claimed to be paid thousands of dollars in cash and held at the beck and call of the genius tycoon." I think that the genius tycoon is supposed to be referencing Trump, and I don't know if the fact that genius is misspelled is supposed to be ironic, or if it's just that, much like other areas, Jeffrey Epstein just doesn't spell very well. Her storytelling, had it been done while sleeping, would have been called dreaming, if awake hallucinations, but to the English press they are referred to as allegations. She claimed in the midst of detail her dinner with President Clinton on the Caribbean island, how he arrived by Black Heli, where he sat on Jeffrey's left, a 21st century tale of power, sex, money. The fact that this story is total make-believe, fabricated on purpose to gain tabloid attention, and easily refuted by readily available travel records of a former president, it defies belief that any person would take seriously such a preposterous story. Little different than her telling her father that she met the Queen. Whoops, he believed her, though her mother, at a relevant time, complained that she must have been engaging in Satan worship and asked that she be put in a drug room. Come on, I am currently a professional pilot with a spotless record. I have a checklist that I follow before every flight to verify things that are where they are supposed to be. Checking her story, which the press has refused to do, would serve the public well. In this case, human error is merely a euphemism for hijacking the truth." By the person whose name is redacted, "They are now asking how my parents bought a building in town, implying it was all the money they got for selling me. Getting ugly." But this shows how Jeffrey Epstein manipulates. He's crafting a story, trying to make sure that he can manipulate people and make sure that they understand. This is how you have to talk about Prince Andrew. This is how you have to talk about President Clinton. You have to make this person, Virginia Giuffre, who made these accusations, seem ridiculous. No one would take her seriously. It's trying to get people to talk in those terms. So he wants to have some control over this. He's creating what people should say. So rather than just allowing this to play out honestly, this seems to be how he operates. Now, this is an email exchange between Kathy Rumler and Jeffrey Epstein. In this, Jeffrey Epstein emails Kathy Rumler with the title Steve Bannon. First, there's a link to an article about Michael Flynn, and then he says, which has to do with the Trump administration, obviously. And then he says, "Do you think Bill Clinton would like to join you, me, Ehud, and Steve? Could be very funny, all off the record." Now, just to give you some context of who he's referring to. So the meeting would be Jeffrey Epstein, Kathy Rumler, Ehud Barak, who was a former Israeli prime minister, and then Steve Bannon, who used to work with President Trump, although this was in 2018. Could be very funny, all off the record. And they wanted to include Bill Clinton as well. So this was a real desire in 2018 to get together with Bill Clinton. He proposed that as though that was an actual possibility. This wasn't like it was somebody he didn't know. Once again, they were still talking in 2016. He may not trust Bill Clinton as much now, but he wants to get together with him. He wants to spend time with him. So Kathy Rumler replies, he might like to. His lawyer would advise him against it. And then a little smiley face. Are you feeling better today? So the kinship and closeness between Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton is still there so much that even Kathy Rumler knows he would like to get together with them. So it does show that there was a real relationship, a real connection that lasted at least up until 2018. Now, here's an interaction between Prince Andrew and Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this is following a bunch of questions that had been sent to Ghislaine Maxwell. Seems like Prince Andrew's freaking out a little bit because these questions are all about Virginia Giuffre. In that situation, Prince Andrew says, in reference to the previous questions that were sent, "What? I don't know any of this. How are you responding?" Jeffrey Epstein says, "Just got it 2 minutes ago. I asked lawyers to send a letter. Not sure. It is so salacious and ridiculous. I'm not sure how to respond. The only person she didn't have sex with was Elvis." Prince Andrew responds, "Please make sure that every statement or legal letter clearly states that I am not involved and I knew nothing and know nothing about any of these allegations. I can't take any more of this on my end." Now we're really seeing their personalities come out here. Jeffrey Epstein basically framing things the same way he has previously about Virginia Giuffre, which, this is ridiculous. We got to talk about this as though it's ridiculous. He's going to put that in writing to make sure everybody understands it. And nobody should take these seriously. And that's what he hopes. He hopes that people can just brush their hands of it and go, this is so disgusting. The things are so salacious. No one's going to believe this. They're ridiculous. That's how we should approach it. And he's been very consistent with trying to state things in that way. Now, Prince Andrew, obviously, he seems extremely anxious. You can tell that just by reading this. Particularly, I can't take any more of this on my end. But in this, he is telling him what to do. Right now, we have two very controlling people telling each other exactly what to do here. Jeffrey Epstein's trying to say, hey, talk about this like it's no big deal. That's essentially what he's hinting at this point. Whereas Prince Andrew was saying, you tell people that I had nothing to do with this. I know nothing. I'm not involved here. You cannot involve me with this. So it's this attempt to assert absolute control in this situation and command that he not be associated with this in any way. Obviously, it didn't work. And for anybody who's seen the BBC interview, we can see why he didn't want to have to talk about these things. In another email to Ghislaine Maxwell, Prince Andrew says, hey there, what's all this? I don't know anything about this. You must say so, please. This has nothing to do with me. I can't take any more of this. So the amount of stress, once again, that he was under at that point must have been tremendous. He must have been very, very anxious and scared about this, because that's how this reads. This reads like someone who is commanding that they insist that he had nothing to do with it, but he also sounds very, very scared. So his idea is to avoid. And that's frequently what we see with people that are anxious. When people get anxious, they avoid. And that was going to be his strategy. Rather than hit things head on, which he ultimately tried to do and it didn't go well, he was going to just try to avoid it, let everybody else handle it. You say nothing happened. You tell everybody I had nothing to do with this. I can't do any of this. Please leave me alone. So this is an exchange between Michael Wolff, the journalist, and Jeffrey Epstein. Now, he's basically asking how he can get to Trump, how he can talk to Trump. And Jeffrey Epstein is giving him advice, basically saying that if you want to ask him questions and you don't want to get thrown out, here's how you have to approach it. Maybe you can ask why Bernie Nussbaum got Vince Foster's letter quickly. That's a Hillary problem. So in other words, and this would have been 2016 before Trump was elected.
It would be best.
So focusing on Hillary, that's going to get him answering questions. He would smile, and then you can go ask his relationships with the electrician unions in Mar-a-Lago, and out you go. And then Jeffrey Epstein wrote more. You want to be provocative, Trump shuttle, Hawaiian Tropic contest, mortgage on Mar-a-Lago, revenue on golf courses income. So all of these that would be embarrassing financial questions potentially, or the intent would be to ask him questions he doesn't want to have to answer about finances. Now, interestingly, that's what he's helping him focus on, because he knows what is going to bother Trump. He's trying to help other people get to Trump. So I talked earlier about how he wants to harm Trump. This is how he's trying to do it. He's trying to do it in a backhanded way. And then Michael Wolff asks, what was the letter? Jeffrey Epstein replies, Nussbaum, White House counsel, Hillary doing naughties with Vince. So for anybody who doesn't know who Vince is referring to Vince Foster. He was White House counsel for Bill Clinton, and there have been a lot of conspiracy theories suggesting that the Clintons were in fact involved in his death because he was found shot. We're not going to get into all of that, but that's why he was suggesting that he bring that up, because that would be something that would go against Hillary that President Trump could talk about. But ultimately, that would just lead him into asking more difficult questions or more harmful questions. So it's very interesting to see the level of manipulation that Jeffrey Epstein's trying to engage in here. So now here's an email exchange between Mark Epstein and Jeffrey Epstein. Mark Epstein being Jeffrey Epstein's brother. He has addressed some of this publicly. We're going to talk about that, but let's get to reading it and then I'll explain. So Mark Epstein says, how are you doing? A while back you mentioned that you were pre-diabetic. Has anything changed with that? What is your boy Donald up to now? Epstein replies, all good. Bannon with me. So I guess he's saying that he's not worried about the pre-diabetic stuff, but he didn't respond to the Donald question. Then Mark Epstein asks a couple of days later, ask him if Putin has the photos of Trump blowing Bubba. So what he means by this, he's saying, ask Steve Bannon if Putin has the photos of Trump engaging in some sort of salacious act with Bubba. Now most people assumed Bubba was Bill Clinton because people call Bill Clinton Bubba. Mark Epstein has said it's not. He also said that he was joking and that this was not being literal. The fact that Steve Bannon was with him, the fact that he's framing it this way, I don't think anybody's taking this literally. I know it spawned lots of memes, lots of viral content, but I don't take any of this other than two brothers joking around. And then Jeffrey Epstein replies, and I thought I had surus, and that's a Yiddish word basically saying like a stress or a headache, or I thought I had problems. I think it's in essence what it's saying. Then Mark Epstein replies, you and your boy Donnie can make a remake of the movie Get Hard, sent via tin can and string. Once again, this is just two brothers joking around. What that means for anybody who's curious, there was a movie called Get Hard where a convict taught somebody who was going to go to jail or who was going to go to prison how to prepare for it. So in other words, because Jeffrey Epstein has been to prison, he could teach Donald Trump how to get ready for prison. That's the implication right there. Now, on May 18th, 2011, Jeffrey Epstein sent an email to Ghislaine Maxwell. Do you have the photos from our Clinton trip to Africa? Now, that's not necessarily specifically meaningful, but it is interesting that he was looking for those at that time. They're little pieces of data that I want to put a pin in right now, because as the rest of the Epstein files come out, we might end up circling back to this. This may be meaningful in some way. It felt meaningful enough for me to at least think about this. But like I said, as more of these files come out, maybe we'll tie it back to something. And this is part of what can be so complicated with forensic work, is that we have to be able to tie everything together. You have to remember everything you've already read here so you can address it later. And like I said, this is 20,000 emails and texts and whatnot. We may have another 100,000. I have no idea how many are going to come out when the rest of the Epstein files are released. But we're not having the knowledge here. If I didn't read all of these, it would be much harder to understand contextually what matters when those later ones come out. So some of the things I talk about may not seem extremely relevant yet, but they might be later. So that's why I'm including so much of this information. Now we're going to look at an exchange between Congresswoman Stacey Plaskett and Jeffrey Epstein. This was actually during a House Oversight Committee hearing with Michael Cohen. So for those of you unfamiliar with Michael Cohen, he worked with Trump for a long time. Jeffrey Epstein is trying to provide additional information to Stacey Plaskett so they can ask him better questions, so they can ask questions that can get to Trump better, because this was about payments that Trump wasn't supposed to have made or something to that effect. But the goal here ultimately was to harm Trump. So once again, this goes back to the fact that they are, at this point, somewhat rivalrous. At this point, it doesn't seem that Jeffrey Epstein not only dislikes Trump, he's actively doing things to try to hurt Trump. But let's look through what some of the text messages say. Now, Plaskett is labeled as G. I don't really know why it labeled it that way, because I think it was sent through his text. So just understand the JEE thing. Just ignore that. So he's providing some commentary, but also is commenting on her. So what privilege stands behind the non-release of college transcripts? Great outfit. You look great. She replies, thanks, with an exclamation point, which shows a warm relationship. These are two people that are using each other. Plaskett's using him to be able to get information, and he's using her to get a sense of control. And then he says, are you chewing? She says, not anymore. He sends a smiley face. Chewing the interior of my mouth. Bad habit from middle school. It's interesting. She feels the need to legitimize her behavior to Jeffrey Epstein. And then he says, sweet. He's opened the door to questions who are the other henchmen at Trump org. She says, yep, very aware, waiting my turn. How much longer for you, he asks. Hours, going to other meetings. Thanks. Cohen brought up Rona, keeper of the secrets. Rona? Quick, I'm up next. Is that an acronym? That's his assistant. Rona. She called out Roger is on line 1, corroborator. Good work. Financial statement exhibit, wild. So he's really trying to coach her. And this gives him a sense of power. Like I said, this is someone who likes to be in power. And she's willing to work with someone who's totally despicable and not tell anybody about it apparently until now because it's come out. But she's been willing to do this to get what it is that she wants. To me, this is an absolutely wild exchange because it seems very friendly. It's not just, hey, give me this information and I'm going to use it. There's lots of chatter between them if you look earlier on. You look great, thanks. All of those kinds of statements. And then Jeffrey Epstein also states the titles of each section are misleading. It talks about asset value, then related loans, and then loans payable. These are all tricks. Assets owned less than 100%, operating property. What were your takeaways? Thinking. But this goes to show he really, truly wanted to harm Trump. He was doing everything he could to try to help in this way. So it's interesting to see that there was a relationship where the Congresswoman was trying to use Jeffrey Epstein, and Jeffrey Epstein was trying to use her because he wanted that sense of control right there. Now, interestingly, back in 2013, it looks like Hakeem Jeffries, Congressman Hakeem Jeffries' representatives were actually reaching out to Jeffrey Epstein to invite him to a dinner or to get to know him better. So even despite back in 2008 that he had been convicted of all of these things, everybody already knew everything about Jeffrey Epstein. At that point, people were still reaching out to him to make these contacts. People would still want something from him. And to me, that's just fascinating. And I'm not sure that it even mattered which side of the political aisle they were on. He certainly seems to interact with a lot more Democrats. But I think that if anything, he would use anybody. Anything that gives him leverage and power, I suspect he would have leaned into. So here's an email exchange between Jeffrey Epstein and Faith Cates. Faith Cates being an owner of a very large modeling agency. So Jeffrey Epstein, once again, bottom to top. Jeffrey Epstein says, "Hope today is fun for you." Faith Cates replies, "Fun? When are you back in New York City?" Epstein replies, "All next week." She replies, "Okay, Dylan will want to see you. I always want to see you. Where are you having Thanksgiving?" Epstein replies, "Ava." Faith Cates replies, "That means Glenn. Check out his red hair." Epstein replies, "Barry's color for holiday." Epstein replies, "Barry's color for holiday." Faith Cates says, "He's such a snooze. Who else is down there?" Epstein replies, "David Faisal, Hanson, Trump." Now, I've seen people say that he spent Thanksgiving with Trump, but that's not really how this reads. The way this reads is that Trump may have been in the same area, whether it's the same resort. I don't know what Ava is referring to. Whether it's the same resort, same place, that they were in potentially the same social vicinity, but it didn't sound like they spent the holiday together. So when she asks who else is down there, those are the people that are down there, but there's no indication that they actually spent the day together. Epstein so far has been very explicit about who he's going to hang out with, who he's going to spend time with. So it seems unlikely to me that he actually spent Thanksgiving with Trump, although I have seen some people assert that because of this exchange. But I don't think that's what that means. Now, this is an interesting interaction between Jeffrey Epstein and Soon Yi. For those of you who don't know who Soon Yi is, that is Woody Allen's wife. Woody Allen and Jeffrey Epstein seems to be close friends. There have been a number of people that have talked about hanging out with Woody Allen and Jeffrey Epstein together, so I think they're very close. Soon Yi being his adopted daughter at one point, who he later married. Yes, that tells you everything you need to know about Woody Allen. Jeffrey Epstein sent her a link. Now, what this link was, it was Bill Clinton's CIA chief is going to be part of the Trump campaign. Now, there was no context given. Nothing specific was written. It was just a link to an article. Soon Yi replied, "Woody said it doesn't mean anything." Now, this means a couple of things. One, it sounds like Woody Allen is not someone to email, so he emailed his wife so that she could check with Woody Allen. And if you look, it was the next day that she replied. So this was something that she had to go take to him, talk to him about, and then reply the next day. Now, the fact that this is so cryptic, the fact that so little is said here, to me makes it stand out. So what does it mean that it doesn't mean anything? What would it mean if it did mean something? What would be the significance there? Once again, as the rest of the Epstein files come out, I'm hoping I can circle back to this because this is highly peculiar. This really stands out to me. And I think that there's a lot more to this, actually. I think this is one of the more interesting emails. But without a little bit more context, we can't draw too many conclusions. And my hope is that with the rest of the Epstein files dropping, that this will have more context. We'll be able to bring it all together. All right, we'll go ahead and stop here. Hopefully this is helping you better understand some of the meaning of the Epstein files so far. Now, in terms of Jeffrey Epstein's relationship to President Trump, everybody knows they have a connection. That's referred to many times, but it seems like he actively does not like him. It seems like he's actively doing things to cause harm. He does not like President Trump. That seems very, very clear, at least not at this point in time. And with former President Clinton, like I talked about at the beginning, this is somebody who I think he feels a kinship to, but also recognizes is highly manipulative. And Jeffrey Epstein seems like someone who wants to be in control. He wants to have as much information as possible. So I'll be very curious when we have more Epstein files that can give us more context, how this will all look when all is said and done. I will most definitely be reading as many of them as I can. I have no idea the volume that's going to come out or what will be released, but I suspect it's going to be much larger than what we've gotten so far. If you have any other thoughts about this, or if there's anything you think that I missed, or there's anything else you want me to analyze, please let me know in the comments below. There are a lot of other interesting emails, but I didn't want this video to be like 5 hours long. But if there are specific ones you want me to check out, I'm happy to do that. Last thing before we get finished up is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.
Oh, micro slop. Let's get down to business, ladies and gentlemen. So, yesterday there was a big thing about Xbox, okay? Xbox, for anybody that doesn't know, is obviously one of the biggest gaming juggernauts, or used to be, in the world. You know, I used to grow up playing Xbox 360 stuff. I was a fan of the old Halo. I was playing my Gears of War a little bit. Nowadays, I'm mostly fallen out of favor of Xbox, so yesterday, some big things happened.
That I have lost count.
You know, I used to have a thing for
Battle starts in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You have to stop them from securing the mission area.
You are strangely alluring.
real hard. Render me assistance. I had to know that.
Heaven is on my side.
You need to stop that vehicle in its tracks.
And I see Fox News, and I see all over X, and the letter from the DOJ. We've released all the files. We've complied with Congress. We've unredacted the names, and we've released the list, the Epstein list, and here it is. And so I go check it and look and see a bunch of new stuff, and I go, okay. And I'm like, wow, this is really great public pressure, because I'd heard from White House people at the White House that no, they're going to unredact what's been released next week. So you should be happy. I thought, my goodness, this is better than I thought. And normally I would go do a bunch of checking, but it's Valentine's evening. I'm about to go do a podcast. I go check it some. It's all over the place. Fox News headline. Here's the letter from the DOJ. Because it's one thing a year ago, or a little less than a year ago, Ted Bundy called some influencers to the White House and then give them binders. And 98% of it is old stuff, and it's almost no information. Ehud Barak's name is in there. I guess one little Easter egg that we already knew about. And we were the first to read it that day and do a report saying, folks, this is not real. This is old. I got attacked for attacking Trump by a lot of the listeners, oh, how dare you? No, this is the files. I'm like, no, it's not. We've seen almost all of this, but 2 pages or whatever, 4 pages, something like that. And you can see the reports I did. And I was just like, wow, this is, and then Bondi was like, well, I'd been told this was it, but now I learned it's in New York, and they have 24 hours to give it to me, and we're going to go take it. They didn't give it to her. It made the head of the FBI there resign, and they went and grabbed it, and then it got sent out to the FBI, as Carl Seraphin said, but he still didn't have confidence they do anything. That was in March. And so this is worse than that. Here she is yesterday. Oh, yeah, I released everything. Oh, it's all out there. And again, when I saw that and saw a bunch of new files and stuff they did put out, still it's only 2% roughly, I thought, wow, I mean, there's no way they just sent to Congress, who passed a law on this. There's no way, because that's perjury, basically. They weren't under oath in Congress. It's a separate branch of government, but still, Bondi cannot be this stupid. This is an impeachable offense, folks. To tell everybody on a Saturday night, here's everything, we've complied, all the files have been released, after she got destroyed last week in Congress, and then to do this, I mean, it is just absolutely wild.
0, 2.
And so it may have gotten them a shot in the arm, as everybody basically, for the first few hours believed it, until they dug in deeper. Again, on a Saturday night. Normally you release something on a Friday afternoon if you really want to bury it. But you release something on a Valentine's Day, Saturday night at like 6 o'clock in the evening? I mean, they are really trying to hide this. And again, I've never found Trump anything we've seen going back involved, but by extension, he now is with his admin in the cover-up. This Epstein situation, just the files we have, is over the top damning, over the top annihilates the globalists at every level. I mean, you've got all the top Obama people, the university heads across the board. You've got other world leaders, the intelligence agency heads, foreign leaders. And the conversations are about cannibalism and death and overthrowing governments and cloning and taking control of human evolution by injecting mutagens into our bodies to most people, what they believe will give rise to kind of the X-Men. It's everything I told you because I know the globalists. I know what they're into. And I knew that Epstein was a top gopher. I knew he was on the Trilateral Commission, on a subcommission. I didn't understand he was the stand-in for David Rockefeller. That's now confirmed. The guy that set it up, whose family set up the UN. Now we get even more clarity. So then we ask, why has Trump's Justice Department, and it's Trump, folks, been trying to suppress all this? Well, they've told you now. As I told you a year ago, they think it'll crash the stock market. Told you that hundreds of times. I don't agree with that. When I tell you why he's doing it, it's because I have the research and the sources and understand it so that we can make our judgment from there. But I am not an end justifies the means person. I think that's wrong. Plus, even if that would have worked out, which it didn't, it's just immoral. And it doesn't prosecute people involved so they can continue on. And also, they're going to turn around and stab Trump in the back. He wasn't involved, but now he is, by extension. And so it is just unbelievable, the information coming out, just from what we have. We'll go over the new stuff people ferreted out that we've gone and checked on the federal data dump and confirmed is real. Also, internet sleuths, and I checked this morning, I learned about it last night. You go click on photos and videos and almost all of them are dead. That's not an accident. But they legally complied with Congress, but they just, quote, made a mistake where if you put in another little piece of code, just another number after it, it gives you the videos and photos. Now, just like looking at Hunter Biden's laptop, I just looked at what people pulled up on this, some of it, and I was just like, wanted to even tell my crew, I'm not going to make them go look at it. I don't even know if it's legal to look at this stuff. I mean, it's bad, folks. So, I mean, it just gets worse by the second. But the DOJ is playing all sorts of tricks. There's no doubt they're involved in a cover-up by now, okay? And, Bondi and Patel and Bongino, he had no accomplices. He wasn't a human being himself. All of that's pure crap. And then, we found all these files. Oh, no, they don't exist anymore. So early on, I don't think they were even involved in it because they're like, oh, yeah, we have all these millions of files. And it was Kyle Seraphin that came on here in March and broke the news that his multiple FBI sources said, no, Bondi sent out to the field offices 14 plus terabytes of information in their Epstein files that had been hidden in New York by Comey and his daughter. And I said, great. I hope something comes out of this. I hope this stuff gets released. And what we're getting is the emails, the text, that stuff, some photos and videos. But the vast majority, or 98%, has not been released. Now, over the weekend, it hit international television that there's 14 terabytes. Top story, hundreds of millions of views, absolutely incredible. But it was Kyle Seraphin, broke it in March, the exact amount, 14.6 terabytes. He even showed me in studio the text messages from the FBI agents in DC and in other parts of the country that had access to it and said, no, it's here.
But I much prefer
So I was like, hey, I hope this means, I was like, wow, Trump's really going after him. This is really happening. And then when they saw what was in there and how damning it was, the politicians and world leaders, almost all Democrats and leftists, the brakes got put on because they're like, this will bring down the stock market. This will destroy the system. Well, the system needs to be destroyed. The system is evil. The problem is the globalists have kill switches and everything. The banks, the power plants, the weapon systems, the aircraft, our cars, the dams. Bitcoin, that's all in there. I mean, just the Bitcoin enough. I could spend an hour on. The mysteries of Bitcoin to a great extent solved. And Epstein getting control of the developers and the Bitcoin Foundation back in 2015, right before it started exploding, and to a great extent having control. This is David Rockefeller's protege. I mean, that's why he was so powerful. And I knew he was powerful, but he wasn't just a gopher. I mean, he was when Rockefeller started getting out of his mind, by the time he was 90 or so, died at 100, Epstein is just absolutely key. So let me address this first, because people love it when I get something wrong. It's such a rarity on a big issue. They savor it, and they say, oh, you're a terrible person, and blah, 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 blah. And you did this on purpose. No, I didn't. I'm in Miami doing podcasts, Patrick McDavid's and others. About to go do a couple more that night, fresh and fit. And it's like 8 o'clock, and all of a sudden my phone's blowing up. All this stuff's happening, just ate dinner. And I see Fox News, and I see all over X, and the letter from the DOJ. We've released all the files. We've complied with Congress. We've unredacted the names, and we've released the list, the Epstein list, and here it is. And so I go check it and look and see a bunch of new stuff, and I go, okay, and I'm like, wow, this is really great public pressure, because I'd heard from White House people at the White House that no, they're going to unredact what's been released next week, so you should be happy. I thought, my goodness, this is better than I thought. And normally I would go do a bunch of checking, but it's Valentine's evening. I'm about to go do a podcast. I go check it some. It's all over the place. Fox News headline. Here's the letter from the DOJ. Because it's one thing a year ago, or a little less than a year ago, Ted Bundy called some influencers to the White House and then give them binders. And 98% of it is old stuff, and it's almost no information. David Barack's name is in there. I guess one little Easter egg that we already knew about. And we were the first to read it that day and do a report saying, folks, this is not real. This is old. I got attacked for attacking Trump. A lot of the listeners, oh, how dare you? No, this is the files. I'm like, no, it's not. We've seen almost all of this, but 2 pages or whatever, 4 pages, something like that. And you can see the reports I did. And I was just like, wow, this is, and then Bondi was like, well, I'd been told this was it, but now I learned it's in New York, and they have 24 hours to give it to me, or we're going to go take it. They didn't give it to her, so they made the head of the FBI there resign, and they went and grabbed it, and then it got sent out to the FBI, as Al Serafin said, but he still didn't have confidence they'd do anything. That was in March. And so this is worse than that. Okay? Because if I was handed just a file, I mean, I'd be suspicious of there's more than this.
Too many of them.
But to sit there and have them on a Saturday evening, send a letter, release this, and say it's done is the same trick they tried back in March. It's preposterous. Here she is yesterday. Oh, yeah, I released everything. Oh, it's all out there. And again, when I saw that and saw a bunch of new files and stuff they did put out, still it's only 2% roughly, I thought, wow, I mean, there's no way they just sent to Congress who passed a law on this. There's no way, because that's perjury, basically. They weren't under oath in Congress. It's a separate branch of government, but still, Bondi cannot be this stupid. This is an impeachable offense, folks.
Heaven has its merits, but I much prefer the field.
Banging everybody, and they all got syphilis, and people's hair's falling out. They have ulcers all over their body, and people are going crazy and dying.
Now, what if all that shit, all the Indians had syphilis, were like jealous white dudes?
They're not the Indians, everybody. The soldiers had syphilis. Everyone had syphilis. This is
but you know what I'm saying, right?
Their
like Indians got syphilis. You don't want to fuck them. Meanwhile, the white chicks wanted to fuck the Indians. They're like, let's go fuck the Indians. The loony left right now, all the top of the loony left, the top of the loony left, the top of them, they're all going to go down for some shit. It's not just Hunter Biden. It's not just Hunter Biden. It's Pelosi.
Eddie.
They want world wars. They want, you know what happened? Remember 9/11. The day before 9/11, Donald Rumsfeld makes an announcement that the Pentagon is missing
as different as we could be.
trillion.
Right.
Guess what? There was going to be a lot of investigations going on. People were going to go down for that. But guess what? 9/11 happens and no one brings it up. So if we have a world war right now, those people won't go to prison. What would you rather go? You rather go to prison or world war? Being famous was the greatest thing ever. And now being famous, it's not so great. It's like you're just a target, you know? It's like being
it depends. You have a voice. The thing is, if you can take the heat. Like,
I'm talking about being like a famous actor or a rock star. You're a target. I mean, look at the news these days. Look at the news. Look what they're saying.
But who's watching
over
that,
and
Eddie?
over? Nobody.
No one's
but
really
over
fucking
and over.
What, the news
over
news?
and over. They're wrong about everything, over and over. 3 years of Trump's a Russian agent. They gave Trump the Russian. That's the worst thing you could give a politician. He's a Russian agent. You can get killed for that shit. They gave him the worst shit. They gave him Russia, racism, rape.
Nothing.
They gave him all that shit. Nothing stuck. Nothing stuck. But if they could do that to the president, they could do that to anybody. Even if you hate Trump, think about this. If Trump didn't win, the person that would be president right now would have a body count. Think about that shit. You'd rather have a person with a body count than Trump just because he's arrogant and overconfident and all that shit. He's a badass businessman. The economy's better than ever. Better than ever. Unemployment better than ever. That's what we have a president here for, to make our country better, more prosperous. And that's what he's doing.
Would you wear a MAGA hat?
It's too dangerous. Are you kidding? If I wore a MAGA hat, I'd be like looking over if you wear a red hat and it says "Make America Great Again," you can get killed. Look how powerful the media is. The media is so powerful that anybody wearing a red hat that says "Make America Great Again," it can get punched.
Except for Colby Covington.
Dude,
well, I don't know if it's the media that did that.
Of course it was.
People's reaction to those hats.
It's anti-Trump.
The media.
It could have been a black hat. It could have been whatever hat.
All the anti-Trump stuff comes from the media. What we're seeing now is we're seeing clearly who is above the law. There are people that can do whatever the fuck they want. We're seeing it now. It used to be a myth, conspiracy theory, but we're seeing it now. Who is above the law? With all this is going on with Epstein and all that, and we're seeing how the media is backing them up too. How interesting is that? If that's all just a distraction to get people arguing, make it so obvious that it wasn't a suicide. It's so obvious. Let's release it, make it so obvious. Meanwhile, he's still alive, and everyone's trying to figure out how he died, and all they care about is that he's dead. There's virtually a media blackout on it for the longest time, but they gotta talk about something, because the longer the mainstream media doesn't talk about it, the more obvious it looks, and it's waking everybody up. You know how many people who are super anti-conspiracy theorists, they're all into Epstein now. It's like when 9/11 happened, that woke up a lot of people. 9/11 woke people up. A lot of people say, well, it started with 9/11. A lot of people are going to say it started with Jeffrey Epstein. People that hate conspiracy theorists are all into it. They're all,
Michael Shermer.
I'm so balls deep in... there's a guy on YouTube who every day he puts out, all he does is, he's written books on gangsters and all that. And every day he puts out a Epstein video, an update, and he just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. His name is Sean Atwood.
What's the update every day, though?
Dude, it would take me 2 hours to go into. It's really all about Ghislaine Maxwell's father. He was the one who was originally doing what Epstein was doing. Epstein started banging Ghislaine. She takes him. She goes, you know what? You're going to take over the family business. The family business is not just blackmailing the elite. That's part of it. But a big part of it, right? You know what? Part of it, dude. Her father, he's the one. Robert Maxwell. That guy was dude. I think they're just distracting everybody. It wasn't a suicide. The amount of deception that's shoved down our throats, it's obvious now. It's all out in the open. So any plausible theory, you can't laugh at.
Dude, he's in Thailand.
He could easily be alive. Why did they need to show 9,000 jumpsuits and shit?
Look at all those jumpsuits.
Come on, man. Dude, it's so obvious. The craziest thing is like, where's the video footage? Oh, the cameras weren't working.
Oh, no. Did you see?
That's the craziest shit
ever.
ever. Wouldn't you think it would be a good idea to all get together and say, listen, every now and then some dude's we're gonna have to sacrifice one of you guys and just fake your death, and then you're gonna have to go to one of the islands in Japan or they probably have so many spots set up. Wouldn't it be smart? Go set up some spots in like the Greek islands or somewhere like off the coast of Norway, Greenland. Greenland could, who knows what's in Greenland? They could have all these cities for like all these people that they die, but you never see their bodies. They could just say, people used to fake their deaths all the time back in the 30s and 40s.
Yeah, but that was before the internet. It'd be way easier to just kill Epstein.
Way easier.
You don't think he has a kill switch? It was tight with the royal family.
Going to the trap house. What? Right. The trap house? Oh.
Epstein.
Try some of this shit.
Epstein.
Oh, this.
Well, not only Epstein. Epstein was tied with the royal family. Jimmy Savile as well. So I mean, they were both. Epstein and Prince Harry.
Jimmy Savile.
See, the thing, what's going on now is the biggest phenomenon that's going on right now is with the internet. The internet is like backfiring and it's boomeranging back at the people. The internet was intended to control us and surveil us. And now what's happening?
The internet was intended for scientists to share information at universities. It was invented from universities. Why'd they invent it?
It was all funded by the CIA. It was all a way to keep. It's always about the New World Order. It's always about the easiest way to control us. We can go on for 5 hours with this shit. It's almost like the CIA was created as a scapegoat, because the CIA ain't going to jail. How do you put CIA in jail? You can't. And then the directors, they're only there temporarily. They're in, out. Everyone goes through it. But it's if you find out some evil shit's going on, CIA did it. See, I ain't going to jail. For sure, in my heart, I'm 100. I believe it 100% that there is some stuff in the Bible that's the real shit. It comes from the real shit. It got distorted and translated and all that.
What do you mean by the real shit?
Like it's a manual on how to live your life right. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? These are rules. Like maybe God is the idea. Maybe God is and Jesus is the frequency. You want to get in that frequency of life? Don't deceive anybody.
Don't kill each other.
Fuck each other up. Then you will be in that zone. That's what God is. Like maybe the book is a manual. I believe there's a God because a couple things. When I did DMT, I thought, okay, there's way more shit to this reality, this dimension that's out there,
seeing
for
all
sure.
The time.
And then the more I get into, trying to find out what we're on and what this is all about, and then you look at the mainstream. I think someone created what we're in. Whatever you think this is.
Thinks a simulation.
I think this is something. I don't believe in simulation.
Me neither.
There's no evidence. But it could be true. It could be, but there's.
But
zero evidence. How do we even know that even happened? Like the theory is billions of years ago, out of nothing, everything exploded.
What do you think happened?
Well, who came up with it?
Are you becoming religious on me?
You know who came up with it?
Oh, dude, if you start talking about Jesus, Eddie.
No, you know who came up with the Big Bang? You can look this up right now. The Big Bang is a priest from the Vatican. A priest came up with that. It was a theory.
Scientist didn't?
Nope. A priest.
Are you sure?
1,000,000%. When you look at the history of the Vatican, when you look at the history, Constantine decided to convert to Christianity because the people were leaving. The people were like, fuck that. So this is mainstream history. Constantine goes, okay, I'm no longer pagan / Luciferian. I'm no longer ancient Babylonian shit. We like Christ too. We're going to do Christ. We got our own. This is mainstream. We're going to start the Roman Catholic Church. We're going to have a pope. He talks to Jesus like every day. We're going to have cardinals. They talk to Jesus like once a week. And then we have the bishops. They talk to Jesus like once a month. And then the priests every now and then. And all of a sudden they created rock stars, dudes with power. The Pope has power. He talks to Jesus every day. Cardinals, bishops, priests, right? So come on back. We got Jesus for you. They made Jesus into like
You're
some
telling us things we already know.
No, but what I'm saying is they were never into Jesus. When you look at the Vatican, they have a lot of fucking Luciferian shit. Look at the resurrection. Look at the sculpture of the resurrection. Pull that up, the sculpture, and you tell me if that's Jesus. That's supposed to be Jesus right there. It looks like a Slayer album cover. They have a telescope called Lucifer and Slayer. It's not the biggest telescope.
You've gone too far.
You think that's
Eddie,
how crazy is that,
you've
right?
gone
How about
too
it's
far.
real? How about it's real? The Vatican has been is a beautiful place. I love it.
Have you ever
I
been?
was born Catholic. And I'm
Eddie,
all
you should
down
go.
for the Catholic Church.
You're gonna have
I
to
love
wear a
the
wig.
Pope. I love the cardinals. I love the bishops. I love all of them.
You're backtracking.
The Vatican has an observatory in Arizona named
real,
by
Brian.
Jesuit
Eddie's
astronomers.
actually. Eddie wants
Yeah, why'd they name it Lucifer?
Exactly.
'Cause they're creeps.
It's an acronym for something, but it just so happens to be Lucifer. Yes, it is. It's like
No, really? They picked the L.
Yeah, they skipped like 4 letters.
That doesn't
there.
make any sense. How do they call that
exactly.
Lucifer?
Exactly.
That's crazy.
It was a coincidence.
I just hope nothing happens with this Iran shit.
Nothing's gonna happen. I mean, we talked about this earlier. What actually happened is when Iran, like they swore revenge, they raised their red flag, and they were gonna bomb
Twice,
They
man.
bombed and they killed nobody. But in their media, they reported that they killed 30 Americans. So it looks like a real
Gotta
retaliation.
save face.
That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Gotta rattle
Because
swords.
when it all comes down, dude, we're surrounding Iran. We got military bases all around Iran. What are they going to do? Well, what happened was they made a lot of deals while Obama was in office, and Trump was like reneging on all that. He's like, who made these stupid ass deals? So Iran's like, fuck you. I thought we had a deal. Trump's like, fuck that deal. That deal goes against the United States. So fuck all that. So that's what's going on. So the rumor is that the president of Iran wasn't getting
Ayatollah.
along with Soleimani anyways. So Trump said,
I got you, fam.
let's take him out. I'll do you a favor. I look like a bad motherfucker.
possible. That's
And
very
then you say we're going to get revenge. You bomb a base that has nobody.
That's very interesting.
You claim that there's 30 people, and everybody in Iran goes, oh, we got revenge.
I can see that.
And then everybody's fine. There was an interview, and they were asking some jiu-jitsu interview, why are you a conspiracy theorist? And I said, why isn't everybody a goddamn conspiracy theorist? We all know the government lies.
But you'll like
and
this.
and then you believe official stories? Doesn't make any sense.
you'll like this.
There is two sides.
That's the algorithm
There's
of
two
YouTube.
sides, and they're polar opposite. One is right, one is wrong. So it's really easy to figure out which one's right and wrong. You just got to figure out for sure who's full of shit. Let's see, who's for sure
where's
full of
it
shit?
coming from?
Hillary Clinton's full of shit, for sure. CNN's full of shit, for sure. So Joe Biden, full of shit, for sure. Adam Schiff, full of shit, for sure. So you know what? Out of those 4 people, they're all saying the exact same thing. And they're all full of shit. And who else is saying the exact same thing? CNN, MSNBC. So we already know, okay, so by process of elimination, you know that shit can't be
But you
real.
sound like Tucker
They're out.
Carlson right now. What about Tucker Carlson?
There's two sides. You got to pick one side.
Dude, pick a
one
side.
One side is Tucker Carlson,
I don't
and
have
one
to pick
side's
two
Hillary
sides.
Clinton.
No, I don't.
No,
I
you
can-
pick
I
a
can-
side.
There's two sides.
Told you, don't let him get off
No,
the
but there's not
rails.
two sides. I don't have to go all the way
No, there's
Republican
three. No,
all the
there's
way
three. No,
Democrat.
there's three. There's
Give him-
three.
give him one
There's
more.
three. There's 3 types of people. There's 3. The first one, people that think Hillary good, Trump bad. Right.
Where you at?
The second type of person is people who think Trump good, Hillary bad. And then there's the third type that think both of them are bad.
No, there's
That's
also
it.
there's
only
also
3.
nuance. Good people must behave corruptly because it's an economy of influence.
But not all of them, though.
No,
Not all of them.
no.
Because if they were all
It's true.
corrupt, there would be no reason to suicide anybody. There would
it's
be
true.
no reason to bribe anybody. There's good people in there.
Yes.
If you fuck up, someone's willing to kill a motherfucker just to avoid jail.
don't
So
have to kill
There's
people
always
anymore.
good people. You just have to figure out who are the good people. I
then
believe Bob
now-
Lazar believes all that shit. I believe he
But you don't
does.
believe it's true?
I believe he's set up. They let him talk too much. Like, how are they going to let him do Netflix and they're going to come on JRE? If you're on Netflix, the deep state wants you on Netflix. I think he believes it. Just like William Cooper. I think he figured out he got set up. He thought he was being set up he thought they're trying to get us to believe in aliens so they could fake an alien attack so that'll usher in the New World Order. Because what happens if the aliens attack? We all unite. In all the movies, you see them in the movies like, oh, they're attacking. Let's call China. China's got this new thing. And the Russia. And then we're all together. We all unite. That's the whole purpose of everything. He goes, they're